Ladies and gentlemen, there is a painful truth in life that many of us come to learn the hard way. Our value is often invisible until we remove ourselves from the equation. When you stand as the quiet pillar holding up a structure, those resting comfortably within it rarely look up to acknowledge you. They assume the foundation is unshakable, that it will always be there. But the moment you step away, the cracks begin to show. And suddenly they realize they never truly appreciated what they had. You were there always, carrying burdens, fixing problems, offering support. And yet, instead of gratitude, you were met with indifference, perhaps even resentment. People mistake kindness for weakness, stability for something effortless. They fail to recognize that effort is being made, sacrifices are being given, and strength is being exerted, all for their benefit. But life has a way of delivering lessons even to the ignorant. And now, with you gone, they are forced to learn the hard way. The silence you left behind speaks louder than any words you could have said. They feel it in the disorder that follows, in the responsibilities they must now shoulder, in the discomfort of realizing that what they dismissed was in fact essential. This is not a call for bitterness. This is not about vengeance. It is a lesson in self-worth. Do not linger where you are merely tolerated. Do not waste yourself in spaces where your presence is assumed but never appreciated. Walk away when you must, not out of spite, but out of wisdom. And to those who remain, those who only now understand what they have lost, I say this: let this be a warning. Appreciate those who contribute to your life before they become a memory you can never reclaim. Because regret is a poor substitute for gratitude, and absence is a cruel teacher. The burden of responsibility. Throughout history, societies, families, and institutions have relied on the unspoken contributions of certain individuals, those who quietly bear responsibility without seeking attention or validation. These individuals, often unnoticed, form the backbone of stability. They are the ones who ensure that things run smoothly, that conflicts are resolved before they escalate, and that challenges are met with solutions before they even become visible to others. Yet paradoxically, the more effectively someone carries responsibility, the less noticeable their efforts become. People grow accustomed to the structure they provide, mistaking reliability for simplicity. It is a strange psychological phenomenon. When a task is done seamlessly, those who benefit from it assume it requires little effort. They do not see the late nights, the internal struggles, the weight of decision-making. Instead, they take it all as a given, as if the support will last forever without cost or consequence. But there is always a cost. And when that cost is ignored for too long, the ones who bear the burden begin to feel the strain. They wonder why their sacrifices go unrecognized, why their efforts are dismissed, and why those who benefit the most seem to care the least. Resentment can grow in the shadows of unacknowledged labor, leading to a silent but critical breaking point, the moment when the burden bearer chooses to step away. That moment is often met with shock and disbelief. Why now, the others ask. What changed? But the truth is, nothing changed, except that the one holding everything together finally decided to let go. And that is when reality sets in. The things that once seemed effortless suddenly require enormous effort. The overlooked responsibilities become glaring problems. Those left behind are forced to confront a truth they had long ignored. The foundation they took for granted was never unshakable. It was simply upheld by someone who no longer chose to carry it. This is why responsibility must be shared and gratitude must be expressed. Those who silently bear the weight of the world deserve more than just expectation. They deserve recognition. Because when they walk away, it is not just their absence that is felt, but the absence of everything they held together. The invisible pillar. In every family, workplace, and social circle, there is always someone who holds everything together, someone who keeps the peace, ensures things run smoothly, and provides quiet support without demanding recognition. These individuals are the invisible pillars, the unshaken foundations upon which others unknowingly lean. Their presence is assumed, their contributions expected, yet rarely do they receive the appreciation they deserve. The irony is that the more dependable someone is, the easier it is for others to overlook their importance. People assume that stability exists on its own, that things will function as they always have without considering the effort required to maintain them. They mistake resilience for an inherent trait rather than a conscious effort. The one who always listens, always fixes, always manages. It's as if their role is natural rather than a choice they make daily. And so the cycle continues. The invisible pillar absorbs the weight of others, often at the expense of their own well-being. They suppress their struggles to ensure that others feel secure. They navigate conflicts so that peace is maintained. They step in when no one else will. But over time, this quiet endurance takes a toll. Without recognition, without appreciation, the weight becomes too much. And when the pillar finally crumbles or steps away, the loss is not just felt, but deeply unsettling. Because only in absence do people recognize what was truly there. The tasks that seemed to take care of themselves are now glaring problems. The stability that was taken for granted has turned into uncertainty. The emotional and practical burdens once carried by one now fall upon the many who struggle to keep up. And then comes the realization. Too late for gratitude, too late for change. The lesson here is simple, yet often ignored. Never assume that the ones who hold things together will always be there to do so. Acknowledge them, appreciate them, because once they leave, the void they leave behind will not just be empty, it will be haunting. Resentment versus gratitude. One of the most dangerous flaws in human nature is our tendency to take for granted what is consistently given. The more reliable and selfless someone is, the easier it is to assume that their efforts are infinite. And so people mistake kindness for obligation, generosity for routine, and stability for something that simply happens on its own. This is the breeding ground for resentment. When someone who gives endlessly finds themselves receiving nothing in return. Imagine a person in your life who has always been there for you, who has provided support, who has made sacrifices, and who has given without asking for much. At first, you may have felt grateful. You recognized their effort, even if you didn't always say it. But over time, familiarity dulled that gratitude. Their presence became expected, their help assumed, and their sacrifices invisible. Instead of appreciating what they did, you started to believe it was simply their role. And the moment you saw it as their role, rather than a conscious choice they made every day, you stopped saying thank you. This is how relationships, whether personal, professional, or social, begin to deteriorate. The person giving starts to notice that their effort is met with entitlement rather than appreciation. They begin to feel drained rather than fulfilled. And yet they keep going because they believe it's the right thing to do. But inside, a quiet resentment grows. A voice in their mind asks, "Why do I keep doing this when no one seems to care?" And then one day they stop. They pull away, they leave, or they simply go silent. Suddenly, the things that once seemed effortless are no longer happening. The support that was once so readily available is gone. The warmth, the guidance, the patience, it all vanishes. And now the people who once took it all for granted are left wondering, what happened? What happened is simple. They failed to express gratitude when it mattered. They assumed that because someone had always been there, they always would be. They overlooked the reality that no one is obligated to continue giving when they receive nothing in return. And so they are left with nothing but regret, a haunting emptiness where gratitude should have been. But this is not just a lesson in loss. It is a call to action. Do not wait until someone is gone to appreciate them. Express your gratitude now while it still matters. Because the difference between resentment and fulfillment, between exhaustion and joy, between presence and absence, often comes down to something as simple as two words: the price of ignorance. People often assume that stability is the natural order of things, that the structures they depend on, relationships, workplaces, communities, will continue to function without interruption. They do not stop to consider the effort behind the stability. They do not recognize that behind every smoothly running system, there is someone making it so. And the tragedy is that the more effectively someone carries the weight, the more invisible their effort becomes. It is human nature to overlook what seems constant: the air we breathe, the roof over our heads, the relationships that provide comfort. All are assumed to be permanent until they are threatened. And when someone is always there, offering support, solving problems, holding things together, people begin to assume that their presence is automatic, like the rising of the sun. They fail to see the sacrifices, the choices, the energy required to maintain balance. But ignorance has a price, and it is often paid in regret. When the one who carried the weight finally steps away, everything begins to unravel. The small acts of kindness that once went unnoticed become glaring in their absence. The quiet efforts to prevent chaos are now painfully obvious as disorder takes hold. And the people who never stopped to appreciate are left scrambling, wondering how they could have been so blind. This is a lesson written into history, into families, into friendships, into workplaces. It is the story of the overworked employee who quits, leaving a company struggling to fill the gap. It is the story of the devoted partner who finally walks away, leaving the other drowning in the weight of their own neglect. It is the story of the quiet leader who held a team together, only for everything to fall apart the moment they left. And the cruelest part? Once someone reaches their breaking point, once they make the decision to walk away, it is nearly impossible to undo the damage. Apologies, realizations, and desperate attempts to pull them back often come too late, because appreciation, when given only after loss, is not appreciation at all. It is regret. So what is the lesson? The answer is simple, but often ignored. Do not wait for loss to teach you the value of what you have. Do not let ignorance cost you something you will later wish you had cherished. Pay attention. Show gratitude. Acknowledge effort while you still can. Because the price of failing to do so is not just loss. It is the haunting knowledge that you had something precious and let it slip away. Reclaiming your worth? There comes a time in life when you realize that your worth is not determined by how much you give, but by who truly values what you offer. Too often, people find themselves trapped in a cycle of self-sacrifice, pouring their energy, time, and love into relationships, workplaces, and friendships that do not reciprocate. They convince themselves that if they just give a little more, if they remain patient a little longer, eventually they will be recognized and appreciated. But this is a dangerous illusion. The truth is, people will take from you as long as you allow it. If you are always the one who listens, always the one who compromises, always the one who makes things easier for others, they will come to expect it as your role. They will not stop to question how much it costs you. They will not wonder if you are exhausted, unfulfilled, or even suffering in silence. They will simply assume that this is who you are, someone who gives without limits. And the moment you set a boundary, the moment you say no, they act as though you have betrayed them. But what kind of relationship, whether personal or professional, falls apart the moment you stop giving everything? The answer is clear: one that was built on their convenience, not mutual respect. And when you walk away, when you step back and reclaim the energy you once freely gave, you will see something interesting happen. Suddenly, they realize what you meant to them. Suddenly, your absence is felt in a way your presence never was. The things they dismissed, the kindness they overlooked, the patience they took for granted, it all becomes painfully clear. And this is where you must make a choice. Do you return now that they finally see your worth, or do you understand the deeper lesson, the lesson that your value should never have been dependent on their recognition in the first place? That you should not have had to disappear for them to appreciate you. That real appreciation is shown through consistent actions, not delayed regrets. Reclaiming your worth is not about proving anything to anyone else. It is about recognizing that you deserve to be in spaces where you are valued before your absence forces people to see it. It is about surrounding yourself with those who do not need to lose you to understand what you bring. And most of all, it is about knowing that your worth was never in question. It was simply hidden behind the blindness of those who failed to see it. But now you see it, and that changes everything.